Okay, welcome. Hope everybody had a happy new year. This is the first video. I'm getting back into doing videos, so want to say a happy new year to everyone. Everyone except PlayStation. Yes, this is what this video is about. This is going to be a rant. And that's why I wanted to make this a video. Because PlayStation, I don't know what's going on with PlayStation. I love PlayStation. I have a PS5. I had a PS4. I own pretty much every single Sony console except for a PS3. Yes, I did not buy a PS3, but I had a PS Vita, I had a PSP, a PS1, a PS2. I love PlayStation. I love the games that they put out. Now, I may not collect all the trophies, but I still buy their games. I still love their exclusives. And that was because they have variety. They had interesting IPs and they always took chances. That's why I love PlayStation. And the PS5, so far, I'm not gonna lie, it's not been what I expected. I know some people love it. I know people love Horizon and God of War and Spider-Man 2. Personally, I mean, I only played Spider-Man 2. I didn't care for God of War and Horizon just because they weren't my favorite during the PS4. But even then, I know that's going to get some people upset. But still, this video, I want to talk about going into 2024 and why there's no first-party PlayStation games. I'm not sure if you noticed this, but PlayStation hasn't said what game is coming out in 2024. Now, we have a remaster of The Last of Us Part 2, a game I really love, probably one of my favorite games. I don't care what anybody says. And that's it. That's the only first-party game that we know. Now, apparently, there's supposed to be Concord, which was a game shown at the last showcase in May of 2023, and we got no gameplay. We just know it's a multiplayer game, and it's probably one of their live service games. But that's it. PlayStation has told us nothing. And recently, because of the Insomniac hack, which I don't want to devolve all their information, but it's out there, and we know that Wolverine is coming in 2026. So that leaves us with 2 years wondering what games are coming out. And I know this is going to be, rile up some PlayStation fans, but ask yourself, what game is actually coming out, right? We know Naughty Dog had put out a game 4 years ago now, and it's likely they're not going to have a game until at least 2026, right? Because these games are taking much longer. And that's the big problem, is that PlayStation decided to go all in on this AAA games. They closed a indie studio or a relatively small studio that they own the last past year, a studio that could have been making, these games that come in between these bigger games. And that's the problem with PlayStation, is that PlayStation has decided, you know what, we're just going to make the same type of game. We're going to make God of War again 3 times. We're going to make Spider-Man 3 times. We're going to make Horizon, Uncharted, and The Last of Us. Those are the games that we're going to make. Instead of making another Returnal or making another Bloodborne or making something different, right? That's all I ask, right? What happened to The Last Guardian? What happened to the Shadow of Colossus? 2 games that came out. One was a remake, obviously, in the PS4 era. And they were pretty cool games. I know people didn't buy them. That's another thing, but I just don't understand why PlayStation hasn't really said anything, right? They just said, oh, when it's time, we're going to show these games. And that's cool. But then you have to ask yourself, why did we get Wolverine's announcement in 2021 if the game wasn't slated for another 5 years? And ever since that Insomniac hack, it's been making me think, what is going on? What is truly going on at PlayStation? We have longtime producers, right, who are leaving after 25 years. And this producer who left, she was the one who was helping with a lot of these big games. She was the reason why PlayStation even got to make Spider-Man on PS4 in the first place. It's really bizarre once you start to puzzle and think about it. And we know some of the financials of Insomniac now because of that hack. And again, try not to go into all this detail, but you got to ask yourself, what is going on? these games are getting more expensive, way more expensive. And that's probably because, people got to live. And, if you want to keep the talent in house, you got to pay them more. That's perfectly fine. I get that. But $300 million to make Spider-Man 2 is pretty crazy once you start thinking Spider-Man 2 didn't really add much. Now, I'm going to have to rant about Spider-Man 2, not because it's a bad game, but I think it's a bit overrated. And I know people hate that term. I hate that term as well. But Spider-Man 2, I honestly think it's a 7 out of 10. I don't think it's a 9. I don't think it deserves a Game of the Year nomination, especially when you had games coming out like Tears of the Kingdom, right? Or Baldur's Gate 3 or Alan Wake 2. Games that actually pushed the needle and did something new and were sequels. Spider-Man 2 is a sequel, and it didn't really add much. I mean, if we're going to compare it to the Arkham series, I love the Arkham series. If you compare Arkham City to Spider-Man 2, what innovated more? What did more things? What played with the lore? What was overall a game that people are going to be talking about for the next 10 years? Well, clearly it's Arkham City, and that's because it's been out for more than 10 years, but you will see. I'll make this prediction, and I make a lot of hot predictions, and I know people don't like a lot of the stuff that I have to say, but I'll say it because this is how I feel. I don't think Spider-Man 2 is going to be a beloved game. I think people are going to cherish the first one and Miles a lot more because they were interesting and did new things. And overall, that's my worry, is that Spider-Man 2 is going to be what's to come for the next, couple of years for the PS5's life. I mean, at this point, Sony is putting out more hardware than games. I mean, it's very possible that next year we get a PS5 Pro. Think about that. A PS5 Pro. And we have yet to get 2 games that really utilize the PS5. I know we had Demon Souls, we had Returnal, but a lot of these games that were exclusive, right? Ratchet and Clank, they're on PC now. What game is really there to sell the PS5? I mean, a lot of people are now using second party and third party, but that was never the case. The first party games are why most of us hardcore or people who follow this stuff really buy these consoles, right? I bought a PS5 because I loved The Last of Us Part 2, right? I loved Uncharted 4, right? They are by far some of the most beautiful, some of the best interesting storytelling in video games. And I know a lot of people love to shit on them. They're movie games, walking simulators, they're not games, quote unquote, but I still love those games. And I replay those games ever so often. And that's why I love PlayStation, because PlayStation is really the only place where you can get these big budget experimental games. I mean, in today's climate, a game like The Last of Us could never have been made. Think about that for a minute, right? The first The Last of Us game would be way too ambitious. It would probably have to be super, it would have to be an IP. And now, obviously, The Last of Us is an IP. But if you go back just 10 years ago, some of the games that we were getting then, it's going to take years, 5 years at most to get some of these games. And there's even journalists like Jason Schreier, right? I actually like Jason Schreier. I read some of his books, I'm not going to lie. And he said that if a new IP were to come out or were to start development this year, let's say 2024, it won't even come out until mid PS6. I mean, this is the point of where we got to ask ourselves, what is going on in the AAA gaming space where games can cost so much? They take more than 5 years to make. Think about that. More than 5 years to make. And I know that these games are very ambitious. There's a lot of time put into them. I mean, that's why there was crunch to begin with, is how are you going to make these games functional, possible, efficient? Like these games have to come out within efficient time so they can make their money back. And I think that's why we need some of these smaller games, right? Stray, that was a game that I really loved. It wasn't PlayStation exclusive, but that was a very successful game in 2022. So you would think PlayStation would look for more of those types of games and make them exclusives, right? What happened to the little devil inside, right? I'm pretty sure we saw that in 2020 at the showcase, and that game was already announced since 2015. So this game has been in development for 9 years, and it's an indie game. You would think PlayStation would send them some money or send them some help because they showed it at their showcase. Their showcase revealing the PlayStation 5. And we've heard nothing. We heard nothing about this game. And it's just infuriating because that's a game where it's like, you can make that a PlayStation timed exclusive, if you will, right? And pad it out. And I know, that's not a first party game, right? This whole rant is supposed to be about first party. We got other second party games like, Rise of the Ronin and Stellar Blade. And, there are second party games coming out. But the point is, I think PlayStation needs to invest into smaller titles, right? They need to find smaller developers and focus on them and build them up. And yeah, going into 2024, I mean, sure, we could probably get an announcement in the middle of the year for a game coming out in the fall. That's what I could hope, right? But right now, even Xbox is looking better than PlayStation first party wise. And if you said that 10 years ago, right? 2014, 2015, you said Xbox has better first party. People would be laughing at you. People would be clowning your ass because, nobody wanted the Xbox. The Xbox was the shit box. I'm going to keep it real. It was called the shit box for a reason. Anybody who had an Xbox was crying because they wanted a PlayStation. So what's going on? What's going on at PlayStation? That's what I have to ask myself. And when you look at all that's been going on, games getting canceled, right? Games budgets going absolutely insane. It's starting to make sense. PlayStation is falling into the AAA trap. We need to make more efficient games, right? We need to make smaller games. And we need to build up people's confidence in smaller games. There's a lot of people who hate indie games. There's a lot of people who hate small 15-hour games like Nintendo games. I don't really understand. Because if you don't have those games, then we're going to be waiting almost half a decade. Half a decade. Keep that in mind. Half a decade. And I'm just, listen. And Jim Ryan, we talked about Jim Ryan, or at least my circle of friends have talked about Jim Ryan. And Jim Ryan, even though, yes, he's been helping the PlayStation brand, I don't think he was the right creative person for that job. He did the business stuff well. And PlayStation creatively, I don't see it anymore. I want PlayStation to take risks, right? I want them to be successful because they were the HBO of the gaming industry. That's how people saw PlayStation. And even though, I still play on my PS5, I'm still currently playing on my PS5, but I want some games and I want some variety. I want some different types of experiences. PlayStation hasn't even put out a Western RPG, like a true Western RPG. The only game that they have that they could say is a Western RPG is Horizon. Horizon, a game that is not even really that great of an RPG. I listen, I'm going to have to go into why I don't like Horizon. I was actually going to replay Horizon, even though, yes, I don't like Horizon. But that's going to end the rant today. So I appreciate it. This is the first video of 2024. We'll see. We'll keep going. I really want to focus more on gaming stuff, but I do like, movies. So, and I like talking about that. But video games right now, I think, are an interesting storytelling medium. And I would like to see it grow. I don't want to just see these PlayStation formula style games. It's reminding me a lot of Marvel, right? PlayStation. I even said this when we saw the new PlayStation Studios intro. Just looked and felt like Marvel Studios. And now look at Marvel Studios. Marvel Studios is in the bin and they're in the waste. They put out a movie that no one saw. And PlayStation isn't that bad because their games are still selling, but Spider-Man 2 was kind of, I'm afraid to say, but Spider-Man 2 was kind of mid, okay? And that might be my next rant, is going into why Spider-Man 2 is mid. So stay tuned for that. I'm sure some people are not going to like this video. but I'm gonna put it out just because I want to rant. I want to talk about video games by myself sometimes, and also I want to, get back in the groove of making videos and putting out stuff, even if it doesn't work. So I appreciate it to the people who actually stuck by and watch. I don't know how long this is because I'm recording on StreamYard, but once I edit it up and put it out there, I'll probably put some gameplay over it. I might even make a video about what's going on with Xbox in 2024 and Nintendo, because yes, I own all three platforms. Um, and yeah, I love gaming. I love the gaming industry. I love the business of it. So, just like the movie industry too. And I love talking about it. So stay tuned, and I appreciate it. And also, pat on the back to myself for recording this in one take. I'm very proud.